Hello friends, welcome to this session and we will be discussing the course BLI 221 and the topic that we are going to discuss today is 5 laws of library and information science. You know, these laws form the very basic philosophy of library science that was given by none other than the father of library and information science in India, Dr. S.R. Ranganathan. These laws are the laws that have been in existence for more than 50 years, in fact now more than 7 decades, and they hold good even today, and they have been followed and they guide us in our working in libraries, and they guide us to provide service to the best possible and also in an ethical way. Therefore, as a library information science student, we should learn these laws, we should know what these laws imply, and we should try to follow these laws in our working, in our profession. So, we will be discussing these laws which form one of the units of block 1 of BLI 221 Library Information and Society. So, let us begin. If you see here on your screen, I have mentioned the year when these laws were conceived by S.R. Ranganathan in 1924 and they were proposed in 1931. So, in fact, I would like to tell you a little bit about the background. Dr. S.R. Ranganathan was a mathematician and he entered library information science from University of Madras, and he thought of giving these laws. That was in 1924 and he worked on it, and finally he proposed the laws in 1931. These are known by the number of laws that are there, that is 5 laws of library science. So, we will be discussing these laws one by one today. We will discuss what these laws mean, and then we will also discuss the implication of all these 5 laws of library science. To begin with, I would like to read out all the 5 laws for you, and you would see here these are given on the screen. Books are for use. Every reader his or her book. Every book its reader. Save the time of the reader and library staff. Library is a growing organism. So, after listening and reading all these 5 laws, you might be wondering that these are all very simple statements. What is the big deal in stating these laws, or why so much of importance is given to these laws? You know, in every discipline, in every subject, you have laws, and the laws are uppermost. Below them there are postulates, principles, theories, and laws are always generic in nature. Let us for a moment think about laws that exist in other disciplines also. Like you would remember that there are laws of motion that have been given in physics by Newton. If you try to compare these with those laws, you will agree, yes, they were also as simple as these laws. Newton had also stated laws of motion which were very evident and we would experience and observe them, but then the laws that he had given were important in classical mechanics and were always acknowledged and have always been studied and taught. So, similar to them, we have these laws here, and they are all simple statements, but they have a very deep intent that exists behind these laws. So, though looking simple, but then if we try to go into their meaning and into the purpose of stating these laws, you would realize that they have been a real direction giving laws to the LIS professionals. They form the very base of the service ethics of a library or a library information science profession. They give the profession a base and a very sound theory and philosophy of serving the users with changing conditions, with changing environment, and these laws keep on guiding us. They will keep on guiding us in the future also. So as such, if you see the laws, there is nothing difficult as far as the statements are concerned, but when we talk about all these laws, when we discuss these laws one by one, you would realize that what is this intent that we are talking about them. So as I said that these laws are very general in nature, and but they provide a scientific basis to working in a library. They provide guidelines, they provide guidance for library information work and activities, though they seem very basic and trivial, but then as I said, there is a lot of intent behind them. Now let us start with the first law, that is, books are for use. You know, why did he have to give this law, books are for use? Because there was a feeling in the society that books that are there in libraries are meant to be preserved. And you know, as we have discussed in our earlier discussions also, that books are preserved by a library. But by preserving books in a library, it does not mean that a library would not allow them to be used, which was happening earlier. So it was that when Ranganathan entered the profession of library information science, he was a teacher of mathematics and he had been working and using, not working, he had been using libraries as a teacher, as a academic, or maybe even as a student he would have used. Then he would have realized that there is an inertia in the library staff to letting the users use the books and libraries, and he found that the users are discouraged to use the books, and therefore he stated the very first very important law that books in libraries are meant to be used. Therefore, if this law was given, the library staff was guided that these books, though they are to be preserved also, but the first point which is more important is that they are all meant for use. But you know, why was this happening? Why were libraries not allowing or were more concerned about preserving the books? There were two reasons. One was that by allowing them to be used, there is a risk of books being lost. Naturally, that if the people come, they take away the books, maybe they are lost, maybe a theft may also happen, and similarly, being used over and over again, they may be torn, they may be dilapidated, or they may also be lost by that. So therefore, in order to avoid these happening, the libraries were generally not encouraging the users to use them. In fact, libraries were not open for the general public, as we have discussed earlier also, that the libraries were open only to the limited few, to the elite class only. In fact, the general people did not know of the concept of a library. Libraries were owned by people personally, particularly the rulers and others, those who could afford to have libraries. Therefore, the concept of a library was not that it was open to the general public, and therefore this law really helped to overcome that view that no, libraries are meant for all, books are meant to be used, though at the same time they need to be preserved only also so that they can be used, but the preservation of books should not prevent them to be used, from being used. And there might be a reason that the production of books was not as high, the methods of reproduction of books were not as efficient or not as common, and also mass production of books was not there, and this all helped with increasing technology, with the printing and other technologies that came into being. Therefore, these concepts were prevailing at that time. So this is a very important step. So as I said that it is with these developments that this could be implemented, that there was no doubt or there were no fear among the library staff that they may not be able to replace the lost books, they may not be able to do away, they may not be able to they will not be having a loss of all these. Therefore, this law guided them that libraries should be open for all. Side by side in the society, the concept of increasing literacy, that everyone should be literate, and if one has to be literate, that means one would like to read books, one would like to have books with them or be in the company of books. Therefore, increasing literacy required that books should be provided to the masses, and in that library is an important agency. Therefore, this law helped to implement this concept of literacy among the masses, democratization of education, and for democratization of education, naturally one needed books, and this law really helped in that. Now, what the library has to do to see that books are used? What are the implications of this first law of library science? Implication for libraries, library staff, library professionals. The implication is that if these books are needed to be used, then the library should be accessible. There should be library available to the people. That means, as we had discussed the other day about the concept of library and availability of library, particularly the public library, we said that these are available in the all over, like starting from a village, town, city, district, and up to the National Library also we have, and also mobile libraries, to see that library is accessible, is available to the people. Therefore, even if it is a site is thought of for a library, a location is thought of, the location should be such that it is easily accessible to the people in that area. It should be available at certain distances, so that people may not have to travel long distances to use the library. And even if it is located in a particular city, town, or any place, it should be somewhere which is central to that place. So, library location is very important. Next is the library building. You know that library buildings are specific to library. Every building cannot be a library building. So, library building should be such that it helps the books to be used. And what do we mean by saying that the library building should allow the usage of books? You know, there are different types of people. There are old people, children, the differently abled people. So, library should take care that anyone who comes to the library should be able to reach to his or her books, so that the books are used. The library should be welcoming for the users. The library location should be such, in the library the buildings should be such, the furniture should be such that the people are able to reach to the books, the people are able to use the books, people are able to sit in the library and make use of the books. The environs of the library should be such, the location should be such. Next, the working hours. If you want that books are used, if you want that the books that are there in the library are used, you should have working hours that allow people of different occupations, of different types, to come and use the library. If office goers, if people who are working, if you want them also to use the library, then you should have extended working hours of the library. You should open the library on holidays also, so that such people can also make use of them. Others who are free during daytime, they may come and use the library. So, working hours should be so that they are extended working hours. The library should be open for maximum time, so that people are able to come and use the library. Books are used. Similarly, the staff should be competent. Competent means the staff should be welcoming for the users, staff should be courteous to the users, staff should be helpful to the users, because it is not that the books are there in the building of the library, people will come, take out the book, use it. No, staff is there to help people to use books. So if you want that books should be used, staff should be such that he or she helps the users to use these books. Now let us come to the second law of library science. It says every reader his or her book. Again a very simple statement that anyone who is a reader of our library should have a book in the library for him or her. That means there should be no reader who wants a particular book and that book is not there in the library. See the purpose of this statement, that a library should plan its services, the library should develop its collection so that anyone having a requirement, a need for a particular book should find that book in the library. And that is what is meant by universal and democratic services being provided to the users. That means how will the library ensure that? The library should know what their users want. The library should be able to know beforehand the needs and requirements of its users so that every reader will have his or her book available in the library. Now, the implications of this is, first of all, obligation of the state, that those responsible for providing such libraries should ensure that we make provision for books for all cross sections of the society. This is particularly relevant for public libraries. But when you talk of other types of libraries, like let us say school library, college library or university library, there you can come to know of the needs and requirements by the curriculum, by what the students, the learners are expected to know, where they stand, where they need to go by that education, reach by through that education. So the library should acquire all such books. So not only those related to the curricula, but also the library should acquire light reading books, books for recreation, for general awareness, for building other skills, attitudes and knowledge also. Similarly, here again the library staff should be competent enough to interact with the users and know their needs and requirements. They should be able to conduct user surveys, and they should, by doing so, they should know what their users or readers want, what the needs and requirements of their users and readers are. And they should cooperate with such users and thus know their needs and thus satisfy the second law of library science. Now let us come to the third law of library science, which says every book its reader. See, the second law was from one aspect, that was from the reader aspect. This is from the book or document aspect. We can also state this law as every document its reader, since at the time when he had stated the book was the main source of information, but now since with changing times it can be reworded as every document its reader. So what does that mean? That any library that acquires a document in the library should reach its user. So see how it is different from the second law. The second law stated that when a reader comes to the library, he or she is looking for a book, he or she is in need of a book, that book should reach the user. This law is stated from another angle, that a book, when it is acquired by a library, this book should be able to reach the user. That means no book in the library should lie unused. That means any book that has been acquired by the library has been acquired because it should reach the users, readers. It is something that satisfies the needs and requirements of the users. Therefore, such book should reach its users. It should not left unnoticed. It should not be left unnoticed. It should not be lying without coming to the notice of the readers or users. So for what do? Libraries provide open access. There are two types of access in library. One is closed access, the other is open access. In closed access, you do not allow your readers or users to go to the stacks and look the books that are there in the library. You do not allow the users to go to the stacks and find books for themselves. You do not allow the users to browse books in stacks in the library. Such a library is called a closed access. Whereas a library in which you allow your users to go to the stacks, browse and find books for themselves, such a library is called a open access library, and an open access library satisfies the third law of library science, that is, every book its reader. Since these books have been acquired as per the user needs, therefore they must be required by them and they should not go unnoticed. Otherwise, if we have acquired certain books in the library which may not be of use to the users, that could lead to wastage of the resources of the library. Moreover, not only making it open access, the books should be so arranged, the books should be so classified that they help the users to use them. They help the users to reach to them. They come to the notice of the users. Therefore, we have designed schemes of classification, we have designed ways in which we organize the books so that they come to the notice of those who want them, those who need them and require them. And we also make use of guides in the library, which are called shelf guides, bay guides, which enable users to know, yes, they are there. We also organize exhibitions, book displays. We provide reference surveys which helps the users to know what is there in the library. We market our libraries, we market our resources. All such activities in a library help to achieve the third law of library science, that is, every book its reader. Fourth law is another very important law which says save the time of the reader and library staff. You know, time is very important, time is precious, and particularly when you talk of the service sector, if the service is not provided timely, then it is no service. You would have experienced otherwise also, wherever you want service and you expect service to be provided to you, you would like it to be timely service. You want service which is fast, quick, efficient, prompt, pinpointed. That is what Ranganathan said, that when you provide service, it should satisfy all such conditions, and then only your users will feel satisfied, contented, and therefore this law guides us that there should be no delay in service, and this will happen only if the staff is prepared to provide service, and for that you prepare yourself in the background, behind the scenes, and once you are prepared to serve your user, you will be serving the user timely. This preparation is not a one-time preparation, this goes on all the time. Whether you are serving or you are not serving, you are preparing for yourself for service, and thus you are able to save the time and you are able to satisfy the fourth law of library science. Again, if you want to save the time of the user, the implications for a library is that it should be open access. Closed access means a user may have to come number of times for availing one service, for acquiring a particular book, and therefore open access is really required to save the time of the users. Otherwise, you may be having a book in a library, but the user may not be able to locate it. The reason may be you have not catalogued it, you have not classified it. Even if you have catalogued or classified, you may have done it wrongly. Therefore, the user does not know about it. Or you have classified catalog correctly, but you have not shelved it properly. That means maintenance is not there, which is also very important. So such things help to provide prompt, timely service. You know, these days we are using information communication technologies. We are automating our libraries. We are digitizing our libraries. We are seeing that our libraries reach our users at their workplace, at the place they want to. We are trying to provide 24/7 service, and this really helps to save the time of the users. User should always be thought of, should be taken as uppermost by us. This is one of the ethics that is very important for us, and this helps to serve our libraries and satisfy the fourth law. The fifth law of library science is library is a growing organism. You know, library like any other organism grows. You know, organism means something which has life, which is living, and this growth takes place in two directions. It is qualitative growth and quantitative growth. Increase in numbers and the growth otherwise, that is called qualitative. In quality also, so quantitative as well as quality. And you know, the quantitative growth is in terms of the increasing collection of the library, in terms of increasing services, in terms of increasing infrastructure, in terms of increasing users and staff. And at the same time, parallel to it, it should be increasing the quality of the collection, quality of services, quality of competence of the users. So this is very important for satisfying the fifth law, that is library is a growing organism. And if you really understand that it will grow in the future, you should take care by providing such a building that has scope for expansion, such a furniture, such stacks, such shelves. The classification and cataloging system should also be such that such expansions are accommodated. The system can accommodate for such expansion. In fact, growth is both positive as well as negative. You may have to weed out also some of the collection, and such practices, such preparation should be there beforehand, so that we are able to satisfy all the 5 laws of library science, particularly the fifth law. So what we have discussed today is that the 5 laws of library science, like laws in any other discipline, are as important as they are in any other discipline. These form the very basis of the discipline, and they guide us, they provide us a philosophy, and we should always, in case of any doubt, in case of any situation which warrants taking a decision, we should look at these 5 laws. We should try to satisfy these 5 laws to provide best possible service to our users. Thank you.